Greetings, everybody. It's Jim in my hands. I've got some more fantasy RPG goodness for you today because I have the latest Hexagram from Steve Jackson Games. Now, for you fantasy role-playing aficionados out there that aren't familiar, this is a not quarterly, a bi-yearly little zine that Steve Jackson Games puts out, and it is tailored for the fantasy trip. But I'd say because of the increasing information that's in here, there's tons of information in here that just can be used for any fantasy role-playing game. Yeah, they got a few articles specifically for the fantasy trip, but for $5 on a PDF and $7.95 for the physical copy, you're not losing. And I'm going to tell you why in a few moments. And now, to give you a little wet your whistle, we see the Beastmaster over here because this is really what this hexagram really is about familiars and the different types of familiars. And that's just one of the great things about this one. I got a lot to talk to you about, so let's get to it. Today, I'm going to be going over with you why you should be using Hexagram number 8 from Steve Jackson Games. Okay, so the theme again is familiars. It's about 16% of this 40-page print run that you get in this hexagram. And if you haven't gotten a hexagram before, this is just a nice sturdy little feel of a little magazine. Yeah, if they put it 8 by 1/2 by 11, it wouldn't feel the same. It would feel really flimsy. So I really like this format. The only question I have is how, now that I've got 8 of them, I mean, I'm going to get more storage. Or like right now, they're just one on top of another. Maybe they'll fit perfectly in the fantasy trip box if I get an extra box. That might be the case. But anyway, back to familiars. So Howard Kistler is the one that wrote this one up, and kudos to him because he separates it into 3 different categories. The first, as of course, with the Beastmaster, he talks about animal companions, okay? And that's different than a familiar because a familiar is more magic based, okay? So he talks about animal companionships and the difference between that and familiars. And he also goes into demonic familiars. So he talks about if your character's arrogant enough to try to capture some kind of demonic power and make it their little slave. I mean, it's bad enough that guys are trying to, contact demons and stuff like that. What if he actually tries to keep one around permanently to do his bidding? What are the challenges there? And so Howard really does a good job going over that. And next we have our ever so present Goblin Master himself, Henry J. Cobb. He's giving us the fortune teller shop. Now, basically, if you don't know anything about Henry, Henry is seemingly obsessed from all outward appearances about goblins. The first quick quest he wrote for Steve Jackson's The Fantasy Trip was about a goblin. This is about a goblin. If you talk to him online and he's giving a combat example, guaranteed you dollar to donuts, there's going to be a goblin in the mix slinging some spells. So, so the fortune teller shop here basically can be transplanted into any city, it seems, any higher city. It probably can be done for villages to adapt it for it, but from what I've seen here, it looks like it's really made for a city. So it could be in Ardonarain or maybe any of those other supplement towns that I've done reviews on. And so it's only a one-pager. It's about 500 words long. And right next door is another one from Howard Kistler. It looks like he's double-dipped here. And he's got one about the brass fly that you see there. Okay, there it is. And basically, it's it's a clockwork fly. It really goes into a few things. And one thing I really wish the fantasy trip would do more of is talk more about mechanics like this clockwork stuff. I mean, wizards all around. They could talk about it like left and right. And I wonder, there seems to be a big gaping hole about what mechanics are about. And I'd like to see more of it. Now, of course, is it going to get into the stereotypical clockwork stuff or steampunk kind of thing? I wonder if they can make it their own, but I'd really like to see it. And just to let you know, folks, I'm down to 15 of these customer appreciation kits. I mean, check out online. Check out those online stores. You know who they are. Check out Dice Scroll. Check out Leather Journal. Check out Octopus Watch. You will find those items for $25 a piece, and you're getting all those dice. And you're getting all 3 of those things I just mentioned, all for $49. I've only got 15 left. Get yours now, link down below. And of course, let's give a shout out to the artwork again that makes a fantasy trip so special. And of course, that's Liz Danforth and Rick Hershey. They're ever so present. And of course, another one, I believe this one, is William McAusland. I remember his artwork from last time. I think this resembles it. I might be wrong because there's two others here that it could be. Were Dragon, pen name obviously, and M. Tourette. So it might be those two, either one, but I'm pretty sure that's McCausland. Tell me in the comments down below if you know for sure. Now, every so often, a rule comes out that's so good that I just want to, just like this artwork, shove right into the main rule book, right? I just want to say, get in there. It's so good. But but at the same time, it is best to be in these hexagrams because we don't want it to expand more of the rules than needs to be in there, even though this is only 2 pages worth of rules. But this is factoring fear in the fantasy trip, and this is by Anthony Shostak. Now, what Anthony did is really good here because if you ever play Call of Cthulhu RPG or anything dealing with fear, it's a big part of the game because you slowly go mad. Just not just all at once, sometimes maybe, but you just slowly go mad. It's like another statistic other than your hit points that you got to worry about. You got to worry about your sanity. And of course, tension is the game master's best friend. But what Anthony does here is recognize that you got to do something special in the fantasy trip because the fantasy trip only has 3 attributes: strength, dexterity, and IQ. And of course, you would think it's a fear check. It's got to do with the mind. That's an IQ check. Roll the dice, see what happens. Well, the problem with that is the wizards in the game all of a sudden become the bravest mofos in the world, and all the cannon fodder like grunts that just have a low IQ are pretty much acting like Shaggy and Scooby Doo and hightailing it out of there, right? So we got to make sure that that doesn't happen. And Anthony does a great job by treating bravery and being indomitable, by having talents, okay? And they just make it easier for those people that have those talents to stand up to bad situations. A great set of rules and only 2 pages long by Anthony Shostak. And just when you thought Steve Jackson took off for vacation on this hexagram, not so. He came up with Mayan-inspired calendars. So this one's got everything about making your own little calendar in your world or your section of the world, what have you. It talks about kind of like a mix between Mayan and, quite honestly, Chinese calendar, giving you octopus, griffin, mantis, like some creature, and then another chart about what the festival is about, and maybe even some spectral values on top of that. So it's definitely 2 pages, good stuff there to make up your little bit more flavor for your world. Speaking of which, when we get to the end here, you're going to talk about putting flavor into your world. There's some good stuff at the end, so keep listening. But again, because of the Mayan-inspired calendars, if you're thinking about getting this hexagram, you might want to pick up the Zodiac die at the same time. It is a nice little die. It has a booklet with it which talks about how to use it for characters and other things, much like a Mayan-inspired calendar. Now, this next one really came down to a matter of good timing for me because I was right at the end of writing another adventure for the fantasy trip that I'm about to get out the playtest and hopefully get into Steve's hands here pretty soon here. But the thing is, puzzles were a part of it, and it was driving me nuts because I'm like, I'm not a puzzle maker. I'm like, how do I do this? I mean, I got through it and stuff like that. But at the same time, I found out how much of a challenge it was to make a puzzle that is good for a campaign. If you make it too hard for people, they're going to look at you like, oh, I'll just roll the dice. It's my character, so use his intelligence, not mine. I can't do this. Or if you make it too simple, well, then that's not good either. You want it somewhat challenging, but especially when you're writing an adventure, you're making it for everybody. So you can't cater to a certain level of competence with puzzles. So what Tim does though is make it so at least if it's just going to be a roll, it's very interesting nonetheless. See, the thing is, he categorizes all puzzles into 4 types: 3D, 2D, mental, and sound. And depending on what category it is, there's other skills that you may have for your character that contribute to it. And I'm talking mundane stuff like jeweler, goldsmith, disguise. It depends on what it is, and it's really cool because now you get a bonus. So you can give a puzzle that has like an 8 IQ roll, an 8 die roll, but yet it knocks down a die or two depending on how many of these extra skills you've got. And if you have a group, he talks about that too, about people helping out. And so it's a combined effort. It's just not one guy solving it. It's everybody contributing an idea of how to approach a puzzle. And he talks also about puzzles in a different way other than, oh, we got to open this door. Here's the blocks you got to move or something like that. He talks about something as simple as a teacup gets broken, you got to put it back together again because X, Y, and Z. But really good ideas of how to make puzzles more than your typical, dungeon fare. And just a reminder, since you are fantasy aficionados, that you probably should be looking into Fantasy Counter Kits 1, 2, and 3. The link is down below and is featuring artists such as Dean Spencer, Rick Hershey, and my brother, Origins award-winning artist Christopher Isert. These can be used in any fantasy RPG and definitely have that old school feel. So check the link down below and get yours today for as low as $20. Now, folks, we're only halfway through this hexagram, and I've already wet your whistle. You've gone this far. So there's only three things you ought to do. First off, buy Hexagram 8 right now. You might as well. And then get any of the other ones that you might have missed along the way. And the second and third is actually quite easy. Please smash that like and subscribe button and let me know I'm doing a good job. I do appreciate it. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. I'd like to hit that really soon. But next we got Group Tactics in TFT by John Hanna. And basically, this one is about forming a group. Now, usually in your mainstream role playing, you're playing with the four same characters all the time with no thought of anything other than we're a group. In TFT, it's a little different because the casualty rate is pretty high. Not necessarily death, but you do have to heal for weeks on end a lot of the time. I mean, it just goes with that realism, and healing potions are expensive. So basically, you sit around, and it's kind of like the ensemble campaign that I talk about in Hexagram number 4, where basically a group you play 1 week and you're playing with this group going this way. You finish that adventure, then you play with a group going this way. They finish that adventure. You kind of meet at the same time at some crossroads or something. You're all healing up, and the ones that are in the best condition go off for another adventure while the other one's healing. So that goes on. But after a while, when you do that, though, you're going to have a plethora of characters. Okay, you're going to have much more than one or two a person. And when that happens, you get to pick and choose who can go on a mission or who doesn't. And this talks about everything from not just tactics and combat, but other things that might happen, like, hey, you're going to be talking to any royals. Keep in mind those courtly graces and such. And there's a good 5 pages of this information in the hexagram. And next up is Timothy P. Remp with a really packed 1-page article about Beyond the Grimoire, otherwise ways to give your wizards new spells without saying, here's a book. Anything from ancient carvings, herbal tea for crying out loud, and vapors. I mean, these are great ideas. I don't want to spoil them. I mean, these are just terrific ideas. So definitely grab that. And then afterwards, we've got Phil Reed in the questions 3. That's the interview segment of Hexagram. Steve Jackson interviews Phil Reed, the current CEO of Steve Jackson Games, all about what a day in the life at Steve Jackson Games is like, and his personal projects, which I've talked about numerous times before. Lately, he just did one on mimics, which I thought was really cool. But they are addictive little buggers. So watch out when you see Phil Reed, because when you dive in, you might not get out of that hole. But they are affordable. I'll say that. They're like $1 to $3 each PDF. So don't worry about getting sunk in. Get stuck in. And Steve graces us again with a 1-pager about cave hummingbirds. There seems to be a lot of little 1-pager articles in here in this hexagram, but no complaints because there's so much information. Now, the thing about the cave hummingbird is that it is, not to spoil it for anybody, but basically it's something that would be good for a naturalist or a ranger to know. Just say, if you see a cave hummingbird, it means X. And it's pretty cool. It talks about its ecology and everything like that. And then after that is by Stefan E. Jones. Now this one, as everything I was just saying is so many 1-page articles, this one's a nice little 5-er. And this is about the Heart of Darkness. Basically, he's writing an adventure set in Tro, and it's a port city on South Elentia's coast. So if you wanted to see some of the expanded material from the basic box set, well, here's your chance to get a primer of what's going on there. And finally, G. McGuire graces us with her presence once again. I think with the last 4 or 5 pages, I think there's about 5 pages, and this is all about local color. Definitely a way to make your cities and towns a little bit more special. Now, you've heard that before. I know you've heard that before, but this is not what that is. Whatever you're thinking about, this isn't it. This is much better. It's more than just, hey, we have a surplus of fish and we have a lack of wood or something like that. This is all about how the locals locals treat their city, and what's important to them. What do they like? As you know, is sports? Is the arena combat popular? What kind of food did they like? What kind of thing are they doing in the streets? Are they arguing, haggling, dancing? What are they doing? These are all little quirky laws and such. And the thing is, there's a whole bunch of charts in here, and no two outcomes will generally be the same for ages for you, if ever. Definitely a worthwhile. Now, folks, if I haven't convinced you that Hexagram is worth every penny, the $5 it is in a PDF or $7.95 for the physical copy, I don't know what to do. This is a grand spanking deal. I mean, I really think they've done a great job on this one. So go out and grab Hexagram number 8, and I'll see you next video.